Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us for this latest episode of the INC Preview Show. My name is Karl, and joining me as ever is Mr. Tim Close.
Aldo.
And our special guest for today, Mr. Chris Thirkell.
Hello.
Chris, thank you very much for joining us again. I'm glad your experience on the 228 preview show didn't scare you off. And we've actually got ourselves a proper studio as well. We're not just doing it in the corner.
Yeah. Spoiled the day.
Now, this was a preview show I was actually really looking forward to. Not necessarily because of the show itself we're talking about, but it is actually the first anniversary of us doing these preview shows. First one we did was UFC 224, and I think us three were the only three people who ended up watching that card.
Brilliant.
It was actually a really good show.
Yeah, we got spoiled for choice at the beginning, didn't we?
We certainly did. But thank you very much for everybody for sticking in. Please continue to support the channel. We got a lot of good feedback for the preview shows itself, and we're always looking to try and improve and to adapt some of our processes so we can get the best experience possible for yourselves. Enough of the complimentaries out the way though, we need to start talking about the show itself. And the first thing we need to do is talk about the past month in MMA. There's been a lot of stuff which has been happening. First thing we need to do is discuss UFC 236, the last pay-per-view, and arguably one of the best fights, not only of the year, but arguably of all time.
It was a great fight.
Adesanya versus Gastelum.
It was absolutely brilliant. He did well to hang on in the end there, but no, I like to see two tough lads like that where I think more or less in every round it looked like at one point it could have even been stopped or it was about to finish. It was back and forth. It was a brilliant fight.
I think the best thing that came out of me for that one was Adesanya came in with all this hype. He was just styling on people. People were calling him the new Anderson Silva. For the first time, he faced some real issues. He faced an opponent in Kelvin Gastelum that was pushing him to the limit, and he still came through.
Did well, and he looked. To be honest, near the end of the 50, looked brand new. It was fun. It was a fantastic war. It was a real good war. He's an exciting man to watch. Like you say, he's probably like what people say the new Anderson Silva. And
there's a lot of people as well really looking forward to that fight with Whittaker. Apparently that's going to be taking place in October, and they're going to book a 30,000 seater stadium in Australia to do so.
Australia, well.
Both from that continent, aren't they?
Yeah, Australia versus New Zealand.
Yeah. That's brilliant. It'll be a good one. See who else to get on that fight card there.
Certainly so, because one of the sort of issues I've sort of had with the UFC in recent years is when they do a show outside of North America, they really do scrimp on the talent.
Yeah, and put one big name on, and then fill it with local lads who, in all fairness, we've had this discussion before, that sells that arena out. But for people like us over in England or who not necessarily have heard of many of the fighters.
And for a lot of those local fighters, it's a big opportunity, like a big stage to showcase yourself. And I mean, if we look at 234, like the Australia card, like Montana De La Rosa, for example, good performance from her, and a lot of people are talking about her as one to look out for at flyweight.
Yeah. So like I said, it's a great stepping stone for some people. Well, it's a massive one, really. But like you said, though, sometimes lack a bit of the talent on the main card.
Yeah. And when it comes to big stepping stones as well, we need to talk about Dustin Poirier. What a big win that was.
Big win.
Massive win.
Beating Max Holloway. Max was, what was it, a 12-fight winning streak? And I mean, I know Max was moving up a weight class, but I was one of those people that put my hands up. I thought Max was going to win that fight.
Well, that's when you've got a good win when you're the underdog, isn't it? That's what.
And if you look at the people as well that Dustin's been beaten recently, it's Pettis, Gagey, Eddie Alvarez, Max Holloway. So he's beaten this string of killers.
And what would you like to see him fight next?
Well, he's going to get Khabib.
Is that 100%?
I would say it's about 95%. Rumour for that one is that's going to be in September. It's going to be the Abu Dhabi card.
Yeah.
And it's going to be basically champion versus champion.
Yeah. Well,
what a place to fight a grappler.
I know.
Abu Dhabi.
I know. They made a purpose-built stadium over there, didn't they, originally? Because I think was it when Anderson fought Sonnen or Meyer over there?
I think it was Damian Meyer.
It was when he took the belt off BJ, didn't he?
Frankie Edgar.
The first ever time. But then they thought they were going to do a couple of shows there a year, but then they stopped that, didn't they?
Yeah, which I think, I don't know if feedback was maybe a bit negative, because I know a lot of people weren't happy with Anderson after the Meyer fight.
Yeah.
Showboating
too much.
Yeah.
Stalling.
But I think they put, if I can't remember the exact fight card, but I think when you saying about them back now, not putting massive shows on outside of North America. They did that time, and they tried to really impress that fight card.
Because you've got all them sheiks to impress.
Aye. But like I say, so hopefully they'll put a massive fight card on for that.
Well,
not that they'll need to with that fight.
No, and Khabib is now, I'd probably say Khabib's is he the third biggest draw in the UFC right now? I'd probably say it's Conor, John Jones, and then maybe Khabib.
Yeah. After now.
So we finished talking about 236. Obviously, there has been a lot of other stories which have been going through. DC versus Stipe has been announced as well. That'll be taking place in August.
There was talk of Brock, wasn't there?
There was.
Yeah.
So when you compare it, when you say DC versus Brock or DC versus Stipe, I think they made the right choice, because I think, as fun as Brock is to watch, I think it just would have been too silly in my opinion.
But that's what you say about fun. I think Brock's a love or hate character, so either way draws the audience no matter what, because like you say, you either love him and you want to watch him, or you hate him, and it brings publicity. You know what I mean? Some people say bad publicity is better than no publicity. So, but no, it's more of a sensible fight, I think. Definitely.
And who do you favour between those two?
That's a hard one. I would maybe go DC. I think I would. I think he's maybe more of the athletic. DC.
I think I'm gonna sit on the fence.
I'm
not sure, because
I tend to sit on the fence sometimes, but then I think I need to make a decision.
I'm sitting on the fence because Stipe knows what boxing tricks he's coming up against now.
Yeah.
And I think if he comes with the right game plan, he could cause a lot of problems for DC.
Yeah.
And DC is not a real heavyweight.
No.
To be fair.
No.
So I think it could go either way.
Yeah. Well, like you said, we've had this before, haven't we, where people could have 10 fights and win 5 against each other, 1-5. So it all depends on the night and what game plan and everything else comes to it. But
and that was one thing that DC did really well in the first fight. He realised Stipe had dropped his hands after coming into the clinch, and he was looking for that throughout that first round.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Stipe anyway.
I am. I've come off the fence.
Yeah, I've come off the fence.
I would probably lean towards Stipe at this moment in time.
I think he's a better boxer. And if he understand, he obviously is going to understand that distance that he has to keep, and not to wrestle with him as much.
Yeah.
Even though he's a good wrestler himself, but he's not an Olympian.
No. There's a massive difference in that.
I do think I'm going to start leaning a little bit more towards Stipe.
And we'll discuss this in much more detail when we get to August. For now, though, we are going to be discussing UFC 237. And one of the things about this card is, in my opinion, when I first really started getting involved in MMA, doing a show in Brazil was always seen as a big thing. It always used to be like there was the Big Four, there was New Year's Eve, Fight Week, Madison Square Garden, and the Brazil card. And I feel the sort of aura of the Brazil show has sort of dampened in recent years. And I think part of the reason for that is, while Brazil has big MMA stars, you look at people like Anderson, Belfort, Jacare, Machida, etc., they're still the same stars that they were back in, say, 2008, 2009.
Yeah. There's no big up and coming new blood of Brazil. Obviously there is, but not of their caliber and of their name. I think they could do it with trying to get them out, if that makes sense. Not that, I mean, I'm looking forward to them. You and everyone else will be looking forward to watching them. But they need to mix it up with some new up and coming. But they're not. If they're not there. I
mean, there are good guys out there. Yeah. I mean, I rate Renato Moicano very highly. We've got Moraes fighting for the bantamweight title in June.
They just don't seem to have that boasting name that everybody knows. Like, you don't even have to be an MMA fan to know of the names, like you say, of Belfort, of Silva. Them names there, they're not them type of. They haven't got that sort of. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, something on them, you know what I mean? They haven't got
the it factor.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, but like you say, it was the same names about 10 years ago.
Ironically, I think the areas of Brazil are seeing the big successes recently are the women.
Yeah. And
the women fight with that sort of Vanderlei Silva brawling sort of style.
That's what people want to see, don't they? People definitely want to see that. Everyone likes technical as well, but everyone likes to see the brawling type of everyone, don't they? They love it.
So we'll focus on the prelims here, and we've got a couple of talking points. We've got the card showing up on screen right now. We have got a couple of talking points, and the first one concerns the first fight on the main prelims. Why is BJ Penn still fighting?
I think he wants to retire in a win. That's my as a fighter. If I was
you don't want to go out on a loss.
You don't want to go on a loss, but it keeps to the point. I think 6 or 7 losses he's had in a row now. It must get to a point where you go, right, that's it. Thing is with BJ, he'll not just want to fight a nobody, and he'll not want to fight probably outside of the UFC for his last ever fight. He'll want to go out in like some sort of style. But like I say, it gets to the point where do you say, right, I've had enough? Because then do you get a win and think, oh, I'm still good enough to do this again and go through this again.
And that's a big factor that I think a lot of people have overlooked with BJ's losing streak. He's fighting tough opponents.
I don't think he's he'll never shy away from a competition, to be honest with you. He's got it up there and everything else, but his age and everything else, he's been around and done it all. He's got nothing to prove. He's got absolutely nothing to prove anymore now. We just hope he doesn't ruin his legacy, really.
Do you think it's... I'll let you go, Chris.
Is he skint though?
I know.
Does he need the money?
I know. It's a possibility, isn't it? It's an absolute possibility, because he's definitely got nothing to prove, in my opinion. And you were going to ask us if he's losing he's spoiled his legacy. Perhaps, but no, I wouldn't. In just say another 10, 20 years time when he's gone, and I wouldn't say, I remember watching his last few fights, he was rubbish. I would never ever do. He's a legend. He's definitely a legend. He could. If it was me personally, he had a decent enough record and he had nothing to prove. He's been there, done it, been in with the best. Still fighting and getting beaten now. I don't think it's. I mean, you've got your health to think of as well. I know it's come up recent now. Babalu, he's really poorly. Can you remember him?
I do remember Babalu, yeah.
He's really poorly at the minute now. Can't even walk in a straight line or anything.
Is that true?
So, you've got to think. And I mean, he had a lot of fights.
Fought Chuck Liddell, didn't he?
A couple of times. Even I've seen him fight down Cage fought down Cage a couple of times when busted. What was I going to say there? You've got to get to the point. I mean, you've got family around him. He's got good friends and everything else. You would think they might even say, look, your health's more important now. But obviously, he'll still be doing well in the gym. He's like probably, he's a fit man. And like you say, he's not fighting anybody. He's not getting beat off of nobody. He's fighting top athletes.
And I mean, someone like Clay Guida, maybe he's not the fighter he once was a decade ago.
He's not either, but
he can still cause people a lot of problems.
That man never stops moving.
I don't know whether I think I could even sway for him to win this fight, if I'm honest.
In terms of our other fights that we got on the card, another big name is headlining the prelims. It's Rogerio Nogueira, Little Nog as everyone likes to know him, taking on Ryan Spann. A lot of people speculating this could be Nogueira's last fight. 42 years old. If he gets a win in front of a Brazilian crowd, good way to go out.
Great way to go out. Absolute great way to go out. Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's not like a concern like BJ either. You know what I mean? He's been mixing up a little bit, win lose type of thing. But no, it'd be nice to. I say it nice. We'd probably all complain when all these like legends retire and go, I'd love to watch him again, but it's not the same as watching them maybe what they once were. So, and like you said there about bringing new Brazilian talent, and this is maybe the only way when these men do retire, then it's time to look for somebody else. Instead of the likes of us hanging on to these type of names, you start looking down the road of other people.
And the other big thing that steps out from the card as well is we've got a large number of women's fights. We've got 3 on the prelims as well as our main event. Would you say it's good or bad that we have this many women's fights?
Don't know. I'm on the fence with this a little bit because I'm not sexist at all. So, and I think the women, some of the fighters, would destroy some men. They absolutely. But as long as they're exciting fighters, it doesn't matter whether they're. I mean, you could maybe have 12 fights of women as long as they're all exciting and great fights. That's at the end of the day, that's what the UFC is all about, and this is what mixed martial arts is all about: exciting fights. So it doesn't matter whether you're male or female, I suppose. I don't think that would ever. I think we had this discussion before about an all-female fight card and that. I don't think the UFC or anything would ever come to that. But it's getting closer and closer to being 50-50. Now, I mean, I know they haven't got as many on the contracts roosters as females, but some of these fight cards, like you say, if there's 12 fights or something or whatever, there's 8 to 4. You know what I mean? It's I don't think there's any issues whatsoever. providing the good fights.
And in terms of any names to watch out for that we haven't mentioned so far?
In general,
yeah.
No, not for the undercard. No,
I think if I had to go out on the limb, I'd say Alves versus Marias. I think that could be a good welterweight battle. And also keep an eye on Irene Aldana. Her last fight against Pudilova was absolutely amazing. I think it was on the 228 prelims, and those girls were just going absolutely at it. You could see Pudilova when she got hit, she was like, "How dare you hit me? I have to hit you now." And it just turns into this wild brawl. And I think when Aldana gets an opponent that's willing to take the fight to her, she can be very entertaining to watch. And I think Bethe Correia is going to bring that out of her. So that could be a little bit of a sleeper, in my opinion.
Very good. Very good. Mate, the Brazilian, I don't think this is on a whole of a fight card. I know you're saying outside of North America. I don't particularly think it's a poor fight card in all fairness. It's maybe not as big as what you would like, but no, I don't think it's too bad of a fight card.
So we'll start off with our main pay-per-view card, and we'll start with fight number 1, which is taking place in the lightweight division. And it's two Brazilians going at it. It's Francisco Trinaldo going up against Diego Ferreira. A good fight for the local fans, but when you look at how good lightweight's been recently, you can't really see either of these men really making a big run.
In the UFC, no, not really. Like I say, I'm maybe actually surprised maybe that's even on the main card without being too nasty to them. You know what I mean? But like I say, I suppose both local lads. That's that fight. If this fight was to take place anywhere else in the world, it probably wouldn't be on the main card.
We'll start off by talking about Trinaldo. Now, the interesting fact about Trinaldo is he once held a 7-fight winning streak in the UFC, and he has wins over the likes of Paul Felder, Yancy Medeiros. I think at one point his winning streak was the third longest. I think it was Khabib and Tony Ferguson, who were the only two which were longer than him. Kevin Lee beat him, I think 2016, I think. He's gone 2-2 since, but good win over Evan Dunham in his last fight.
Yeah, good, very, very good win. Yeah, definitely big name to win.
And I think as well, he's one of those guys as well. I think if you want to see if you are UFC ready, in my opinion, and you're worthy of maybe contending for those top 15 lower reaches.
I think he's a bit more than a stepping stone. I know, is that what you were going to sort of say?
I was going to use gatekeeper, but...
See, to me, I think a gatekeeper, I class them as like, if you get beat off him, you get released type of crack. I wouldn't say that about him being that...
No.
Like you say, maybe if you win against him, you're top 15 level, you know what I mean?
It's sort of like a lightweight Neil Magny.
Yeah.
Like Neil Magny's the sort of guy who you need to be to say this guy's worthy of being in the top 10.
Yeah.
In terms of his fighting style, kickboxing background, I think he was a 3-time kickboxing champion, but also surprisingly well-rounded. He's got 5 wins by substitution, some nasty knees, sometimes a little bit reliant on his power left.
Yeah.
He does go to that punch a bit too much for my liking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've said for years, going back to his submissions and his kickboxing, for years and years, even on the local circuit, professional, there should be no professional now who's not well-rounded. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
He's got a kickboxing, but years ago you'd be surprised to see an ex-kickboxer have 5 submissions on his record. Now that doesn't mean nothing to me at all. Now, you know what I mean? It's nice to look at a lad. It doesn't matter about the background. If they've got half submissions, half wins by striking, you're the same. I'm the same. Really, both our wins over our professional records being 50-50 wins by them, like submissions, ground and pound, all stuff like that. And like I said, I think especially at this level, you've got to be all rounded. You could not, or you get found out and you get took apart at your weaknesses, really.
And he's managed to do all this despite being 40.
Fantastic. He's had more time to do
it. In terms of his opponent, Diego Ferreira, now he was at one point considered one of those big Brazilian stars of the future. He got done for a steroid test, had half a 2-year layoff, came back in 2018. He's won 4 fights in a row, including his most recent fight to Rustam Kabalov. Again, Kabalov, another guy who a lot of people had a lot of hype about a couple of years ago. That just seemed to have basically what Khabib is now, people were expecting Kabalov to be.
Yeah, but you get that in every sport, don't you? They have a moment of something, they're young, and they get...
I think it's when they're from Dagestan. They just think everyone from Dagestan's Khabib.
You know, we were talking about Brazil and the lack of Brazilian stars coming through. All the prospects are Russian now. It's all from Dagestan.
Yeah. Well, should all be from England. Need some more, don't we, coming out?
We do. Because I'm trying to think who are the Brits who are like ranked at the moment. I think it's Till, Edwards, and Calderwood.
Right.
And I think those are the only 3 Brits right now.
Ranked in the top 15.
Yeah, ranked in the top 15.
Right. Yeah. There's some good. Like getting back, I know we called off the track when we were going about Australia and Brazil. We know some good English lads who aren't nowhere near there. But in Brazil and Australia, they'll be saying, "Who are these people?" But they are talented lads, and I suppose they do have to make a name. And I think sometimes they're as good as certain other people, but it's getting the lucky break to get that fight, to get that make it on the big stage.
And what makes this fight compelling as well in terms of Ferreira is, well, we got Ronaldo who has his kickboxing background, Ferreira jiu-jitsu black belt, and a very good ground game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I love this sort of conflict of styles there between striker versus grappler. And you don't get that as much. You were mentioning that a lot of guys are more well-rounded.
Yeah. Years ago, I'm talking years ago, like 2003 and 4, on the local scene as well as this, it was literally people used to commentate and they'd say, classic matchup, striker versus grappler, didn't they? That's all it was. And you'd get like a boxer versus a boxer, or a submission versus submission and all that. Now, there should be no such thing as that anymore. It should be, we've got a complete mixed martial artist here who maybe prefers to stand up. And we've got a great mixed martial artist here who prefers the jiu-jitsu side of things, the flow. But there should be no striker versus grappler now.
No.
You know what I mean?
Would you say this fight's main card worthy?
Yes and no, because they are 2 good lads. If you were one of them two, you'd class yourself as main card worthy. But I think we expect a bit much. I think there's that many big names now on the rooster. I think what we all do is we expect the 5 main fight cards, 10 fighters to be all top 15, top things, and they aren't really. So yes and no, I can see from both.
And in terms of your predictions, who are you leaning towards?
Ronaldo.
I'm going to say Ferreira. I think if he had come back after his ban, a shadow of himself, I would have maybe doubted it. But he seems to be performing as well as he did before his ban.
Yeah.
I usually favour grapplers over strikers anyway. And I mean, if you look at his record as well, only 2 people he's lost to, Dustin Poirier and Beneil Dariush.
Yeah.
No shame in losing to those 2.
Definitely not.
So I'll be leaning towards Ferreira. I can see this one maybe going the distance though.
Yeah. Well, at least we're not all saying the same.
No, which will make it interesting.
Yes.
We'll move on to fight number 2. We are going up to the welterweight division. And we have got a classic battle between Brazil and Argentina. If you know your football history, you'll know the issues between them 2 countries.
Yes.
Second fight on the card. Now, we're talking about what fights deserve to be on the main card. I've always found the second fight always seems to be the weak link in pay-per-views recently. I mean, the last time we had a really great second fight was probably Derek Lewis versus Volkov.
Well, as a business person, you would actually, when you think about it, I've never ever thought of it or looked at it like that. But when you think about it, you would always try. I mean, that's not maybe one of them. You would maybe try for the first fight coming on pay-per-view as a bigger one, and then your main and core. So you would always probably put your weakest 2, your second and third fight. Whether they've done that right this fight, I don't know.
Your first fight's always supposed to be sort of like the big banger that's getting people excited.
2 and 3 mediocre or whatever, and then like you say, you're waiting for you're advertising for your core and your main.
And we've got a veteran versus prospect matchup as well. We'll talk about Thiago Alves first and foremost. Now this guy has been around for 15 years now.
Yeah,
I think he made his UFC debut 2005. And he's beaten like a who's who of the sport. So he's beaten like Cairo Parisian, Josh Koscheck, Matt Hughes was probably his biggest win. Fought GSP for the welterweight title.
Yeah. He's been around. He's a big name, but he can be forgotten about and all as well. You know, but he is. He's a good fighter. Like I say, the fight card for my age is actually a good fight card, but because probably I'm thinking about these fighters 10 years ago or 5-6 years ago, you know what I mean? Like, they are getting a bit older, but they're still names that you want to tune into to watch.
I mean, there's an intrigue about watching Alves, and I mean, if you look at some of his past fights, he's got a lot of power in his hands. But it's like we always say when it comes to veteran fighters is, how long can you keep going at that? Because there's all these memories of what they were like.
Yeah, you forget
when they were young.
Older. I know, but they obviously still think they can do it, and they still can do it to some extent.
And I think what I find quite interesting about Alves as well, in terms of his recent fights, it's his third fight in 4 against a UFC newcomer.
Yeah.
So
he's been given the role of a bit of a they're not, when the newcomers, they're not like obviously debut, they've done somewhere else in the world and everything else. He's like a bit of a, I know I've said a stepping stone being released, but I think he's like that's what he is now. He's testing the water to see how good these new fighters are and where they go from that fight. They lose against him, well, they give him a less fight or get rid. If they beat him in style, then they'll get pushed up against a real another prospect.
I sort of felt he did the same thing with Ross Pearson during his later run. He started being used in that way.
Definitely did. His retirement and all now, which I wish him all the best as well, because
he's going to do some stand-up.
He's doing boxing. He's gone boxing.
Pro boxing.
What would you say are Alves' biggest strengths as a fighter?
Strong. His hands, everything. I mean, like, I can't really call people like him because he is an all-round fighter, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's been there. He's done it. He's overpowering.
He's a tank.
Yeah, he's a tank. He's a little. I
Come
wouldn't
forward,
really want to mix with him.
aggressive.
You feel like you'd struggle to probably get him down. You'd struggle to, like I say, you could probably with a reach maybe outstrike him, but he's still come over and catch you. And he's
very Wanderlei like, isn't he?
Yeah, he's
like a berserker.
You would like him with you in a night,
yes,
brawl on a night out, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm.
I think he's gone 2-2 in his past 4 fights. His last fight was against Max Griffin. Controversial decision. A lot of people thought that he didn't deserve to win that fight. Can he possibly get that spark back to maybe get 1 or 2 wins before maybe retirement?
I don't think he's lost his spark completely, and also I don't think he's fight him or whoever the matchmaker or whatever. I think they know his limits now, and they actually give him the correct fights now. They're not overmatching him with top names. So yes, he could definitely win his next couple of fights.
We'll start talking about his opponent now, which is Laureano Stellapolli.
I don't know much about him. I don't know much about him at all, to be honest with you, Karl.
Well, I have to admit, I'm in the same boat. The only fight I've managed to watch of him was his UFC debut when he fought Hector Aldana. I think that was on the Buenos Aires card last year.
Right.
And the impressions I got of him was he was a very long body for a middleweight. That was the first thing that took me by surprise. Yeah. I always find the welterweight division to be sort of like the wrestler division.
Yeah.
Which is like short, stocky fighters.
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot physically of Brandon Thatch,
right,
if you remember him.
Yeah.
Thatch and possibly a little bit of Darren Till in there as well.
Right.
Quite a composed striker. He seemed a little bit nervous to start the fight with, but after that first 2 minutes where he was sort of like, oh, I am actually fighting in the UFC right now, he got much more composed and he really started pouring on pressure on Aldana. And Aldana's face, his left eye was just an absolute mess. So
it sounds like a fair matchup.
And I think 7 out of his last 8 wins have come by knockout as well. So
that's not a fight. I don't think it's a bad fight at all. I would tend to go against what you said about being the second fight now, or being the I'd maybe put that first fight for the pay-per-view people channeling in.
Although I remember a lot of people felt the same way about Dwight Grant versus Alan Juban.
Mm-hmm.
People said there's no way this fight's going to be boring, and they were just too scared to engage.
Yeah, well,
might end up being a wrestle fest.
That it can happen, you know. You get some people you get too much respect for each other. I'm not saying this is going to be that, but you get the 2 most exciting fighters in the world fight each other and become the boringest fight in the world. Then you get there'll be a fight on there that we're not expecting to be, which could be an absolute cracker.
Well, I think the guaranteed one when it comes to fights everyone expected to be great was Lewis versus Ngannou.
Yeah.
Everyone said there's no way this fight's going out the first round, and I think, what was it, 20 strikes formed between them?
Aye, I know. It doesn't live up to the hype. I think also when it's got that much hype, it never lives up to that much hype, because people expect more than what they should do, you know.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of Stellapolli, one of the concerns I sort of had, and we see this with a lot of young strikers, is he did seem to get a little bit carried away. I think especially late on in the fight he knew, okay, last 30 seconds, I need to try and go for the finish to keep this record intact. And he was getting caught on the counter. So I think if Alves has a chance,
he'll knock him out. Alves, yeah, he's going to obviously find a different class of opponent now with Alves. So he definitely needs to. But he'll have his team there, he'll know himself. Look, you made this mistake last time, you got away with it. This is a different kettle of fish, this fight now.
Any predictions for this one?
I'll have to go Alves. Don't know a great deal about his opponent. Like off records and everything else, which you can't really go off. But I would say Alves. I would like him to get the win as well. I would like him to get the win.
I'm the same, because I don't know much about Stellapolli.
I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to say Stellapolli.
Oh.
I think it's going to be. I don't see it being a slugfest, but I think Stellapolli will just be that little inch quicker than him every single time. So I'm going to say Stellapolli 30-27.
He tricked us into the prediction there, didn't he? He tricked us.
I'm sneaky like that. So we've touched on the first two fights on the card. We'll move on to fight number 3. Now this is one which a lot of people are looking forward to. Featherweight division, potential title implications, especially for one of the fighters. It's Jose Aldo versus Alex Volkanovski, and potentially a changing of the guard fight in featherweight. We'll start with Aldo first and foremost. Arguably one of the overlooked legends of the sport.
Yeah, but definitely, I think in his era, like when it was what was it before? Was it WEC or what? It was the WEC. Because I think that weight was overlooked back then. Honestly, I think he hit the wrong era. If he was in his prime doing what he was doing now, he would be bigger than the McGregor name and all of them. But I think back then when he was beating everybody, I think everyone was into the heavyweights, the light heavyweights, and the middleweight. It swings.
It was a stacked weight class as well, wasn't
it?
Like,
no, he's fantastic what he's done. He's another one who's got nothing to prove anymore. Nothing.
And the great thing about Aldo in recent years as well was he had that rough run where obviously what happened to Conor happened,
first,
and then there was the 2 losses of Max Holloway, and I think his motivation took a real big hit.
Yeah.
But now that he's announced his retirement plans, I think there's going to be this fight and then one more later on at another Brazil card, and that's going to be it. He just seems so much more relaxed, almost like this weight's off his shoulders, and we're starting to see the old Aldo again.
Aldo back. How old is he now off the top of your head, Karl?
I think Aldo's around 32, 33.
So he's not.
But he's been fighting for a long time now.
Yeah, you start early, you finish early, don't you? This is it.
Some miles on the clock.
Yeah, it all depends on that. No, Aldo, going back to Aldo, like he's got nothing to prove. If he's 32, 33, obviously still thinks he can do it in front of his beloved Brazil. To be fair, he's gonna just, as long as he's not getting too hurt or anything like that, and his body's telling him he can do it. There's no reason why he couldn't just keep going, providing he got the correct fights, which he isn't going for the easy fights, mind, is he?
No. I mean, you look at the people he's been facing recently.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, there was Max Holloway twice, Jeremy Stevens, who is one of the most powerful featherweights on the roster.
Yeah.
Moicano, a lot of people were saying that he could be a potential champion.
Yeah.
And now Volkanovski.
Yeah. He hasn't took the easy road by any means, but I don't think that's in him to do that.
No.
I don't think that's in his blood to take an easy way out.
What would you say are Aldo's biggest strengths?
Stand up.
Aye.
And for me, it's the leg kicks.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that fight, you were mentioning it before WEC. He fought Faber.
Yeah.
And Faber's leg was an absolute mess by the end of that fight.
Yeah. His timing and that might not be as good anymore, but he's still there. You don't just lose it over. You don't just completely lose things.
He's got excellent takedown defense as well.
Yeah.
I really do enjoy watching Aldo. It's a shame though that I feel like there's so many new fans that just don't recognise how good Aldo actually was. I mean, if you look.
Sorry, go on.
You look at some of the fighters he's beaten. He beat Chad Mendes twice, Frankie Edgar twice. He's beaten the Zombie. So these are like some of the best featherweights of all time. Aldo destroyed them all.
This is what I'm saying. When people, it's a shame. I first ever noticed Aldo, apart from like the MMA fighters, the new ones.
The McGregor fight.
The first ever time they've seen him fight, he lasted 13 seconds on a loss, and then after that he got beat. Was it 2 straight off the bounce with Max? Did he win him one in between?
He beat Edgar. Yeah. He beat him for the interim title, and then it was the Max losses.
Yeah. So I think this is what I mean. Although because of the WEC wasn't really that massive to not worldwide. You know what I mean? It'd have been nice for him to start his career now. If he started it now and he was in his prime now, he'd have been a lot better recognised than what he was.
I think a guy who was similar to that was Miguel Torres.
Yeah.
Miguel Torres was amazing at in WEC.
Yeah.
But once he came to the UFC and he'd had a few miles on the clock.
Yeah. Just like a lot of the Pride fighters, when the Pride went, they brought the Pride up, they come over. They were absolutely. Honestly, I remember making predictions going, well, he'll kill him, about all the Pride lads taking over, and they didn't. They come to the UFC, and a lot of them didn't make it. But I think they just had their day already, and they were at the end of the line. You know, not saying that like I say Aldo's at the end, but He is, and he's not in his prime anymore.
No. We'll talk about his opponent though, Alexander Volkanovski, and a lot of people very excited about this guy. Used to play rugby, and for I think it was the Warilla Gorillas. He helped them win their National League title, I think in 2012. Then switched to MMA. Used to be trademarked on his wrestling when he was going through the regional scene.
Could be that light.
That's what surprised me. I think it was £200 when he was fighting in when he was in rugby, and now he cuts down to 145.
Right. I was going to say, like I say, I know they have the. I don't want I'm talking about in rugby, right? But I know they have like a couple of lighter lads to do the run down the wings or something like that. But the rest of them, they all huge, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. I think Tai Tuivasa was a rugby player as well.
Right.
I think we'll be discussing him when we come to 238.
Right.
So that's maybe a different sort of transition we're starting to see in the sport.
Possibly. I mean, rugby is very, very, very physical. It's not like your football or anything like that. And they've got this mentality that no matter how hard you get hit, you get back up. You're not faking a dive.
Yeah.
They're quite, like I say, the hands on. I mean, the training alone on rugby will be rough going out of imagine. So it's a bit of a sensible transition, if that makes sense.
Well, I touched on this on one of the recent videos I've done. I looked at different sportsmen that have tried MMA, and we had like gymnasts, racing drivers, cricketers, like a 5-time world's strongest man.
Yeah, well, a lot of the Japanese back in the Pride days, a lot of them would a lot of gymnastics. They used to get a lot of flying arm bars and stuff like that, because I think through school that's one of their things in Japan, being a gymnast. Yeah. So they're quite, and they're supple. Yeah. For getting submissions on them and for getting rounds and everything else. But like I say, I don't think a rugby player must be. What's the most successful transition
in terms of sport? Are we including pro wrestling in this?
Well, you can't really, can you? Because it's going to be wrestling.
That's combat based, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't think of a rugby, football, tennis, cricket out like that. Trying to make it anyone.
Well, in terms of the NFL,
Aldo used to play a lot of
soccer.
Football.
Did he?
Aldo used to. I think he was on the youth books for. I think it was Flamengo.
Right.
Brazilian team.
Right. Aye.
Heading back to Volkanovski though, used to be trademarked by his wrestling. Now he's a full-on power striker and a 16-fight winning streak as well. And if you look at the people he's been beating in the UFC, they're not cans either. Jeremy Kennedy was unbeaten. Then he beat Darren Elkins, who was one of the hardest people to put away. And then he had that win over Chad Mendes at 232. So he's climbing up the ladder, and I think the Mendes win was the first time people sat up and said, this guy
is for real.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if when you look at it like that, you don't know whether this. I'm on the fence whether this fight even makes much sense for any of them. Do you know what I mean? One being so up and coming, and then one, I don't know, like if Aldo's taking the right fight here. And
that's a big concern that people have had when it comes to Aldo's booking recently, because obviously he needs big fights. Obviously he's a good enough and a big enough fighter to get the big fights, but in doing so he's beating everyone who could be fighting Max next.
Yeah.
So Moicano has been spoken about for a title shot. Aldo beats him. Yeah. He could do the same thing to Volkanovski. And then if he beats, say, Zabit or Brian Ortega,
Aldo's back up there.
Yeah,
he's there. I don't know if it'll go like that though myself, but definitely you can't rule anyone out if they start winning. So it was like I remember Tito Ortiz lost about four,
and then he beats Bader.
He beat Bader. Then he pulled in last minute to fight Rashid Evans. And they said if he beats Rashid Evans, he's fighting for the title next. I think he lost 5 or 6 anyhow before that. You know what I mean? You think, he's one win away. He'd only won one fight. He was one win away fighting for a title. I suppose if you're fighting the title contenders and beating the title contenders, then you're the title contender.
Yeah. The name helps as well, though.
Yeah. The name. He's already got the name, hasn't he? He doesn't need no building up. He just needs to prove that all he needs to prove to the UFC is that he can still cope with the best. He doesn't need to build his name up anymore. He's already got that household name.
In terms of Volkanovski, though, we mentioned his striking. The other big characteristic he has is his pressure. And I think we showed that in the Mendes fight. That fight starts off actually quite even. Chad lands a few good blows. I think he maybe rocks Volkanovski a little bit. But Volk just keeps up the pressure. Chad can't keep up, and then he gets the finish in the second round.
Yeah.
I think it was a very good performance from Volkanovski.
Yeah.
And if he applies that kind of pressure to Aldo, who we've seen before with the Max Holloway fight, that eventually Max just started keeping that pressure and started tiring out Aldo.
Yeah, I think it might go that way. I think it's got.
Yeah.
I think it's a really tough fight to choose, and I think in terms of the featherweight division, in terms of its like short-term future, it would be better for Volkanovski to win this fight.
Yeah.
But Aldo's fighting with so much confidence recently, and he's got the home crowd on his side as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to lean towards Aldo simply because Aldo's fought guys like Volkanovski before. He's beaten Chad Mendes twice.
But I was going to say, was it the same Aldo that's fighting?
Exactly.
But you were saying obviously the confidence and everything else. Is he back? I can't see him being back to. He definitely can't be back to what he once was.
No.
But somewhere near. I'm
going
against you.
I am. I'm going with Volkanovski.
I'm noticing a trend recently here. 2 versus 1 here. So that is the third fight on the card. We'll move on to fight number 4, and we've got an absolute legend on the main card. Once again, it's Anderson Silva going up against Jared Cannonier. Although Cannonier enters the fight as the favourite, a -170 favourite, Silva you can get at 140. A lot of people speculating this could be Anderson's final fight. 44 years old, legend of the sport in Brazil.
He's one of my all-time favourites, and I think he's everyone's all-time favourite. To be fair, you know what I mean, or one of. I would love to see him. I would love to see him win and go out on a high, but at the same time, I'm going back. I would love to see him keep fighting and winning as well, because I don't like to say Anderson, no matter how old he is. I would be upset if anything bad happened, or because he is.
Yeah.
He's got nothing. Once again, like we spoke about all 3 lads tonight, he's got nothing to prove. But I think it's just in you to fight. I think the buzz, everything, you know what I mean. I don't think he wants to go, but if he is going to go, he'll probably go on a win in Brazil.
And you can see that with the way Anderson does a lot of these press conferences. You can still see that he enjoys fighting.
Yeah. He's like Ross Pearson there, we mentioned. He's stopped fighting. He's gone into boxing. Anderson Silva won't. If he retired from MMA, I'm not saying he'll go into boxing, but he'll go into some sort of competition, I would imagine, because I think that's just in him, isn't it?
You could sort of see him doing some like jiu-jitsu tournaments or something like that.
Yeah.
In terms of Anderson's recent form, obviously we know what he did back in his prime when he was middleweight champion. In terms of what he's done since, let's say, the Nick Diaz fight when he came back from his leg injury.
Yeah.
As much as we do like him, you can see that there's that extra step he's just lost.
Yeah, maybe even 2 steps.
Yeah.
Because he might be an extra step to someone else, but he was that good before. He's actually probably gone back 3 steps, because he was actually that much superior to everyone else. He's now sometimes gone back to their level, and then maybe even below that a bit. You know what I mean? He's really lost that. But no one could keep up. You can't keep that going for that many years.
No.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's not just the fighting; it's all the training. And the years roll on, and you get a year older, another year older. You couldn't just be on top form it's just impossible for any man to be.
It becomes harder to recover from your training.
Everything. Yeah.
As you get older.
I think the thing that stood out for me when Anderson was fighting in his prime was the level of striking compared to everyone else.
There was no like
leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else.
He was massively ahead of anyone else. To the point, it was frightening actually. He was frightening. He could actually, in the way he was proved it, he was actually taking the mick out of people in the fight.
You just got to look at when he fought Adesanya, and they said this is the first time he's ever fought anybody who's potentially as good, if not better than him at striking.
Yeah.
That was such a fun fight, that.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of an actual contest, it maybe wasn't the best one ever, but them two seemed to be really enjoying it in there.
Yeah.
I was just sat there with a big smile on my face.
This is what I mean. Do you want to see Anderson Silva retire?
I don't want him to get hurt.
No, I don't. I mean,
don't want nobody to get hurt.
Why doesn't everyone just think, right, don't get him just get him a fair fight. He's not in this top level anymore. He's better than this level, and give him like the top.
Put him in the bracket he belongs.
Bracket exactly. Forget his name, forget what he's done, and give him the bracket where he belongs. Like exactly what he said. Probably between 10 and 20, top 10 and 20 type of thing. Don't give him anyone in the top 10 now, and don't give him anyone where he's just, which the UFC wouldn't mind. They wouldn't just give him a note, because you can't be a nobody in the UFC. But just put him in the bracket where he belongs. Let him enjoy himself.
You said don't give him a top 10 opponent. That is what they've actually done here. Number 9, Jared Cannonier.
Is he up to 9? Is he?
Yes, he is.
I didn't know that.
Which is very surprising, because Cannonier, he used to start off as a heavyweight actually. Fought his first few fights as a heavyweight.
Well, I'm going to contradict myself there, because I think Anderson Silva will win this fight. But I did not think he was in the top 10.
It's the most winnable fight Anderson's had since Derek Brunson.
But if you think about it, his last fight was Adesanya, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he'd have been in the top 10.
Yeah, but I know, but he's gonna get getting, like, I think he's lost since he lost Weidman twice. That Diaz fight was overturned, wasn't it?
No contest.
Then he lost to Bisping. Then who did you fight after Bisping?
I think it was Brunson.
Was it? So he must have lost what, 5 in his last 6 or something like that. So you kind of just keep providing him with it, especially if he gets beat on this one, which I don't think he will. You've got to then put him down a bracket and definitely take him out the top 10. Do you know what I mean? Of competing with them.
Someone made a comparison to Anderson. If you follow Formula 1, you'll agree with this. It was like, can you remember when Michael Schumacher came back with Mercedes?
Right.
You could see that the physique was still there, the hunger was still there, but just the reflexes were just a little bit slower, and he wasn't competing at the front. He was around that sort of 7th or 8th place. That's what Anderson reminds me of now.
Yeah, definitely. But I want to see him back to winning ways. If he's going to continue to fight, like I said, no one knows what he's going to happen. But if we're going to see him continue to fight, I would like him to probably win, maybe lose every 4 fights or something. You know, once every 4. I don't want to just see him like BJ Penn. I mean, he's not far off that now. Do you know what I mean? Of red.
Mm.
You want to see him get a couple of wins under.
How old is Anderson?
44. I think
he doesn't look at 44.
No.
I think the thing that sort of saves Anderson though is he's not disgracing himself in his losses.
No, he's not. He
arguably beat Bisping.
Yeah.
He didn't show himself up against Adesanya.
No, that's the difference. That's definitely the difference. I mean, the Weidman, he got caught the first one, then he broke his leg the second one. Didn't he?
Is Weidman the only person to finish him? At least in the UFC, he definitely is.
Yeah, because he's only lost before that.
He got submitted by Rio Tronin.
Yeah, he did. That's right, but I think he avenged that.
Did he?
I think. Yeah, in the UFC we talk, and then because that was his first loss, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In the UFC, yeah. You mean you're right. What you've just said there. Actually, he's not disgracing himself in the fight. So even if he keeps losing, he's not getting finished in 2.5 minutes and looking terrible.
Going back to Cannonier now, we have to talk about his opponents. I know it's nice to talk about Anderson, but we need to spread the love out a little bit here. In terms of Cannonier, used to fight at heavyweight, then he moved to light heavyweight, didn't have that much success there, lost to Glover and Dominic Reyes, and then he moved to middleweight, took the fight with David Branch on I think 2 weeks notice, knocked him out in the second round, and he's got himself a middleweight ranking.
Yeah.
And a fight with a legend.
Yeah. It's quite a bit of a fairy tale story if he went and out to beat Anderson. It's a very big. He's found his weight then, or thing is with taking a fight, and I know firsthand by myself, it can actually throw the person off who was meant to fight more than the man who stood in last minute, if that makes sense.
Because I think Branch was supposed to fight Jacare on that card.
Right.
So going from Jacare to Cannonier, like Cannonier is a big power puncher.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, obviously he'll obviously feel now that he's
got an appropriate name, hasn't he?
Aye.
Cannonier.
He'll feel like he's he'll probably feel like he's made his weight, and this is where he wants to be now. And like I say, if he beats Anderson Silva
in Brazil,
he's definitely got to be. They've definitely got to give him someone, even especially if he's ranked 9th now. You know what I mean? I don't know who would give him next off the top of my head.
I could possibly see Jacare. I don't think the UFC have ever been too fond of Jacare. They've always seemed to try and put obstacles in his way to stop him getting title shots.
Yeah.
And now Jacare's come off a loss to Hermanson. So I think that could maybe be a fight that they could set up. Maybe Weidman.
Yoel Romero.
They're saving Romero for Costa. That's a fight. Yeah. That's a fight I would love to see. I think from Anderson's perspective, this is actually going to be a really tricky fight for him because he doesn't gain much from beating Cannonier, but Cannonier gains a lot if he does the opposite.
I would agree with that until you told us he was ranked 9th. If it hit 44, he's still beating ranked 9th middleweight in the world. I think I would take that all day. Like, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Who apart from like the top 3 or 4 or whatever, who else is a bigger name than Anderson Silva? Anderson Silva really is. He's that if you're an up and coming fighter or you're trying to make your name, he's the name you want to fight. You're asking for Anderson Silva because that's a massive win on your even now after a few losses. He's a massive name on your sheet, isn't he?
Yeah.
On your record.
And the big question as well coming out of this: will Anderson retire if he wins?
I don't think he will.
I think if he did, I would turn around and say, yeah, that's a good I'm not saying that he should do it, but it wouldn't be a wrong move to do. I think you could go, yeah, he's won in Brazil, well done Anderson, see if you do it and move on to something else, go into coaching even, in like big time, you know what I mean? Or just enjoy retirement. But I don't think he will. Like you say, he has that much fun at it, and he's just he's got that competition in him. I don't think he will.
Your predictions for this one?
Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
I'm going to go full house, Anderson Silva as well.
First
Anderson
time.
by decision. First time on the show, we are going the same way. Maybe that's just me heart over me head, but I do think that...
I think the last couple of times it was me heart over me head with Anderson, but I think actually this is me head talking.
Yeah. I can maybe see Cannonier being a bit overawed by the situation.
Yeah.
Like fighting a big guy like that, because I remember when he fought Glover.
That place is going to go up.
If Anderson wins big time.
Yeah.
I just hope there's people left for the main event though, because everybody's going to be there to see Anderson. I just have this vision of this sea of empty seats for the main event.
Before we go on any further, if you were the that's all been match made for you now. You put the fight order in. Who would you make main event?
I like the fact that they like to put title fights as the main event to show that it's the UFC which is the centerpiece rather than the fighters. But in terms of what makes more money, what will draw more people in, you would put Anderson main event.
Yeah, I agree with what you've said though about putting the title fight main event. No matter who you are, no matter what, that your title fight's last. But yeah, Anderson, especially if they know that it is going to be his last fight.
Yeah, I think that's the main reason why they're giving him co-main over Aldo, because I think Aldo Volkanovski has more title implications.
Yeah, I think it's more of a scratch your head fight, on the fence fight to this one. But yeah, I agree.
So we move on to our main event, and it's the first time that the Strawweights have ever headlined a pay-per-view. Rose Namajunas taking on the number 1 seed Jessica Andrade. Andrade entering this fight as a slight favourite. Would you say this is a worthy choice of the first Strawweight main event?
Well, I suppose if she's a champion, then I suppose exactly what she's gone back to there. If you're the champion, unless there's another title fight on the card, then yeah, it is main event.
Because I always thought it was a bit of a shame that Joanna never had the chance to headline a pay-per-view, because Joanna was a fantastic champion, very aggressive, very approachable girl. I think she was like co-main like 5 times.
But obviously better main event every time.
Yeah. In my opinion,
a bit of luck. Yeah, it's a bit of luck.
It's a bit of luck, and I think because you needed a Brazilian to headline the Brazil card.
Yeah.
And there aren't that many out there who were available or in contention. Because I think one of the stories I heard was they wanted to do a big super show. They were going to do a Curitiba Stadium, and they wanted the Cyborg Nunes rematch to headline. Amanda said no, there weren't any other Brazilians available, so they were left having to go to Andrade and Rose.
Right.
Although I do think Rose asked for the fight to take place in Brazil. I think she was offered to, I think it was the 235 card, the John Jones card. She was offered that and she said, no, I'll do Brazil.
Yeah, well, that's fair play. That's fair play. I think if I was that type of fighter or any fighter, I think you would like to think, why not travel the world and fight all around the world and become a proper champion, get your name out everywhere.
And it would be, I think Rose as well is the sort of person, I think she gets the best out of herself when she's put in adverse situations. So I think her fighting in enemy territory could arguably bring the best out of her.
Yeah. I think it was Anderson Silva always used to say that when he was champion, he not just wanted to be the champion there. He used to try and defend it. I'm sure it was Anderson. He used to try and fight it everywhere in the world type of thing. I want to be the champion in every country. And go, and like you say, there's nothing more better than going to someone's backyard.
One of the other things I've known.
Never been in anybody's. Been in mine.
One of the other adverse reasons for maybe why this is main eventing is something we're going to touch on here, which is the UFC have done a lot of women's pay-per-views post-Ronda, but none of them have women's main events, I should say. And yet none of them have never really had that same sort of impact. I think they knew how big of a star Ronda was, and they started throwing anything at the wall to try and get themselves another one. And I don't think there's anything which is really stuck right now.
Not for me.
No.
Definitely not. Nowhere near. Ronda was huge. I don't actually know. I know she was good to watch and she was finishing people in the fight center. I don't know whether because she was the first main one everyone knew about, and now maybe everyone's trying to compare to her and think. Yeah. But not one female has even come close to That's stardom.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that Nunes Pennington did worse numbers than UFC 1?
I don't know. You're the statistician.
I think I read that somewhere. They did worse numbers than UFC 1.
Wow.
So more people wanted to watch Tyler Tooley and Gerard Gordeau.
Yeah. I'll be honest, if I was to buy the ticket and I was going over to Brazil to watch this, that main fight would not be the one I've gone to watch.
I think
at all.
I wouldn't get on the plane to go over to watch that.
No.
The only women's main event outside of Ronda that I felt was big enough to justify it was Cyborg Holly.
Yeah. They've got two big names. These haven't got that. But I'm going to go to what you said though about, I love how the UFC haven't changed their tune because of it. And they've kept, because really that would be a bit like appalling to them, you know. It'd be a bit, if every other title fight was main event and with having no other title fight, if they took them off the main stop, that would be like, hang on a minute. So I do like that the UFC stuck to it, but no, it's probably not the main event.
We'll talk about our champion first and foremost, Rose. And the great thing about Rose when it comes to a fighter is we've seen pretty much her entire career, because she started off in Invicta, that's all on Fight Pass, so we've got pretty much her whole career, which we've seen in front of us. And the growth she's shown from her debut to what she is now has been so substantial, because she was this reckless grappler, she was trying to throw flying arm bars all the time, and now she's, as you mentioned before, she's an all-round mixed martial artist, much more comfortable on the feet.
I mean, she does deserve recognition in a sense of being a UFC fighter and a good one. But it was just like you said, when wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but I don't know whether it is a proper main event. Main event, like Chris said, would you go on a plane to go and watch that fight?
Well, I would, because it's a free ticket to a UFC show, so I would
for free.
No one said that.
It's for free.
No one said it was for free. No, we have seen it grow. Yeah.
And I think Joe Rogan always said as well that sometimes putting a fighter in a big match makes him rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
He always said that about Dillashaw when he fought Barao.
Yeah.
Now we know the reason why Dillashaw was so good in that fight.
Yeah.
But you could argue Rose did the same against Joanna.
Yeah.
I think Rose was always around that sort of level with Joanna there, and yet Rose just upped her game so much. It was such an impressive performance.
The favourite can sort of to go light on them as well, like sort of take them lightly. And that can be a bit of a factor. They take them lightly a little bit. They rise to the occasion a little bit.
And I think we saw that with Joanna. I think Joanna completely underestimated how good Rose was going to be striking. But that's what made the second fight between them two all the more impressive, because Joanna knew Rose is not to be messed with in the striking department, and Rose still beat her.
Oh, you don't underestimate anyone, do you?
No. And that was a fantastic fight as well, by the way. In terms of Rose, in terms of her strengths, obviously she's got a fantastic submission game, much more comfortable in stand-up. Although I've always felt she seems to struggle when it comes to high-pressure fighters. I think Carolina at 201, because Rose was winning that fight on the ground, she was winning that fight in the stand-up. But the clinch work, Carolina was getting the upper hand, and Carolina just kept pushing for the clinch all the time, knee after knee, and Rose couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And that's what won Carolina that fight.
Yeah.
And that's something that Rose will need to work on if she wants to try and get a win here, in my opinion.
It's something that if you do it in one fight, then you generally try. You generally don't make the same mistake the next fight. You know, if I get an opponent and I was to watch them, I'd go that in the fight before they got taken apart with a certain summit. You generally can't get away with doing the same, because what they're being beat off, to make sure they don't make the same mistake in the next fight.
And that's one strength that Rose has shown.
Yeah.
When Rose has lost, she's completely ironed out that side of the game.
Yeah.
It's
so
just
she is getting more and more of a complete fighter every time. Yeah. Sometimes you need to lose to do that.
The other big factor as well with Rose coming into this fight is this is going to be her first fight in 14 months. So it's the longest break she's taken between fights.
Yeah.
Do you think ring rust is going to be a factor for her?
I personally think, me and him had this conversation about different things. Ring rust affects different people in different ways. Some people you can't tell they've had a 2-year layoff. Some people you can think they've had a year layoff and they don't look half the self. Mm-hmm. It depends on what she's been doing in that time. Do you know? Honestly, I think every person's different. So every single person on the planet, some people can ring rust doesn't mean anything to them. It's like someone having the debut. Like they can be absolutely brilliant. They've never fought before in their life. Ring rust is different to different people. Some people I don't know how she's going to handle it or whatever. I think you'll find out in the first couple of minutes, won't you, of the fight, whether that's a factor or not, whether her timing's out or whether they're if she's had a good fight camp, ring rust shouldn't really matter. I think if you've got injuries in your fight camp and you can't spar as much, you can't do, and that throws your timing out more than a ring rust.
And those first couple of minutes is going to be arguably when we see the most dangerous Jessica Andrade, because Andrade, she started off at bantamweight, so undersized for that division, but that was the only option she had at the time. There was no strawweight division. Moved down to the division in 2016, I believe. She's gone 6-1 since then, fought for the title at UFC 211. She lost to Joanna, and she enters the fight off arguably one of the best strawweight knockouts of all time against Carolina.
Yeah.
That was scary, just how much power she had in that fight.
Yeah, like I said, if she comes out like that, like you said, Rose hasn't got much time for ring rust, has she, in the first couple of minutes?
In terms of Andrade's fighting style, and it was something we touched on earlier on, she has that sort of Vanderlei sort of style. It's hands down, big wild swings, a real proper brawling style.
Fan favourite type of style.
It is. I love watching Andrade for that reason.
Yeah.
She's also very strong, and we saw with both the Joanna and the Claudia fight, she can take a punch as well.
Yeah. Them type of fighters do. They can't. That's why their hands. I know it's a bad. We were talking about one of our friends. It's a bad thing to have, but it's because they're knowing they can afford to do it. They can afford to take a few, which is quite more scary for their.
And I think as well she has a lot of because she has such faith in the chin as well.
Yeah.
She can afford to be maybe a little bit reckless.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw that with the Carolina fight. Carolina did land some shots on her.
Them reckless people can be dangerous.
Yes.
Just as much danger as what they are to themselves.
The high risk, high reward, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, I think we saw that with what happened with Cyborg and Nunes. I think Cyborg had so much faith in the chin that she waded in and ended up getting caught.
Yeah. Or it can go against you.
Yeah.
But it can, like I say, it just depends on the night.
Yeah. In terms of Andrade's weaknesses, though, because this is really where Rose needs to focus on if she wants to win. The big issues I've always had with Andrade, I think her strength is also her weakness. She does have this hands-down brawling style, but if you watch it, it's straight lines.
Yeah.
I've charged straight towards you, and then, I've missed you, I'll charge straight towards you again. There's no corner cutting, there's no sideways movement. And I think that was what let her down when she fought Joanna. I think Joanna's very good fighting on the back foot, and I think that movement just completely flummoxed Andrade, and she was gassed by the third.
Yeah.
Still moving forward, but so much slower.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of energy to swing and miss.
It does.
Definitely to charge. Being the aggressor is harder to be, you know. But that's her style, and I don't think her style will have changed.
No,
in this
because it's been so successful for her. It doesn't need to change.
Yeah, exactly right. And if she's confident to put her hands where they are and march forward, then she'll do it.
For me, this fight is dependent on how good Rose fights going backwards.
Yeah.
I think it was something that Joanna did very well in their fight. Even Tisha Torres had a lot of success when she fought Andrade, fighting backwards and landing these shots as she does so.
Yeah.
Rose needs to do that, and in my opinion, if I had to gauge right now, I don't think... I mean, she has the potential to do it.
Yeah.
We saw her footwork against Joanna and how good that was. But if she starts feeling that pressure, like she did against Carolina, I see it being a bad night for Rose.
Yeah, I'd go for Andrade.
Yeah, Andrade.
I'm going to say Andrade first 2 rounds.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a head and heart decision. That I think I can see you doing it, but I think I would like to see her. I think I would like to see her come out on top. To be fair,
I would
like Rose to win.
Same.
Would you?
But I don't know if she can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think Rose as well. I think Rose, the potential matchups that Rose could have as champion, are much more interesting than they would with Andrade.
Right. I don't think Andrade is more just interesting fighter all around though.
Oh, big time. But I think, and I hate to bring this up as well, I think Rose is a more marketable fighter. I think the UFC quite likes Rose, and it'd be harder to push Andrade as a champion than it would.
Yeah.
Do you think Andrade and what do you call her again? Nunes, very similar sort of marketability?
Yeah, I think they've got big problems. I mean, whether that's changed post Cyborg with Nunes, I don't know, but
I think once you can't be marketed, I don't think you can be. I think it's a bit like.
I mean, I know a lot of people that can't stand Nunes.
Yeah.
So it's been very hard to sell her.
But I've got to say it again. When you can't stand someone, I still think it's publicity. I think because people still tune in. If you're a good fighter, no matter how hated you are,
going back to bad publicity is better than
no publicity. Yes, okay, it's nice to be a fan. McGregor got talked about as much, because a lot of the people around here, not they hate them, but they all tune in to watch him.
Because they want to see him get
because they want to see him get beat. Yeah,
it's like Mayweather.
Yeah, so it's for the UFC type of thing. It doesn't matter whether they're loved and hated, as long as people. I know we don't like to go on like this because it should be all about fighting. As long as they have people are paying their money and tuning in to watch them fight, it doesn't matter whether they're loved or hated.
I don't think it's a love or hate thing though. I think it's just general disinterest.
Just disinterest. That's a bit different. Like disinterest, different. Like
because I think Usman's going to have the same problem. I mean, very impressive performance against Tyron, but I just can't picture people tuning in to watch him fight.
No.
Do
you think that's because they're not?
Well, Andrade is an exciting fighter, so is Nunez. I think it's
because I don't think because people got on this bandwagon that they thought they had to trash talk to become someone. It was getting the point, whereas years ago there used to be one trash talker in a mixture. There was actually one decent gentleman or one decent person in the mixture because everyone was just trash talking each other. It got a bit silly. I don't think you need. I think you just need to be an exciting fighter. With Andrade being an exciting fighter, I don't know why people wouldn't tune in.
Usman's Nigerian, yeah?
Yes.
Was he brought up in America?
There's that big joke Marty from Nebraska, isn't there?
Right.
But no, I think he trains in America, but he was raised in Nigeria.
Right. And obviously Andrade and Nunez, both Brazilians. So I think when the more of a English speaking
good point.
Fighter, they become more marketable.
Yeah.
Because as far as I know as well, Andrade, I think Andrade's English is very limited as well.
Yeah. But are we saying this because we're from England? I mean, in Brazil, are they more marketable?
So they might not be marketable to us though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But they might be marketable over there. And if that is the case, you're saying I'm stupid. Her fights will be in Brazil. Won't they? They'll not take it to America.
Yeah.
And in terms of what could the opponents Andrade could face if she was to win, then it gets interesting as well because obviously you've got Joanna who has already beaten Andrade and has to say, well, I've beaten you before. I should get an opportunity to get the title back.
Definitely.
But then you've got Tatiana Suarez in contention, Nina Ranzarov as well.
I think the rematch would make sense for both fighters.
Yes.
One won the title, one won to get their rematch, to get their, what do you call it, like break even, go even really, get their revenge. That's what I was
a bit like Bisping with Dan Anderson.
Yeah. Exactly like that.
So a lot of stuff that we can take away from the pay-per-view, I think regardless of the result of the main event. Not the strongest show that the UFC have ever done, but still some great talking points.
Yeah, I would definitely. I don't class it as a poor. Overall, maybe, but there's that many big names in it. Even if they have done it, there's still some big names in there to definitely watch. And interesting to see how they can cope. That's the difference. Like, want to see where they are. Like, I mean, I can go back to the undercard of Nog and BJ. Seeing where the Aldo fight goes, always have to tune in Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
So there's that. I know it's them 3 fights should potentially carry that fight card, and them fight cards. There'll be some good fights among them fights, definitely.
And it's one that we will be really looking forward to when that happens on Saturday. This has been the INC preview show. Mine has been Karl Birmage. That's been Tim Close.
Thank you.
That's been Chris Thirkell.
Thanks very much.
We'll be joining you again for UFC 238. I'm really looking forward to that pay-per-view and the super fight everyone's talking about, Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Rai.
Mm-hmm.
See you later, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.